Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Hope everyone is having a great Tuesday. Hello, everybody. Welcome. I'm feeling okay today. I'm feeling okay. So that's why I wanted to come on for a little bit and hang out. Yes. Oh, I've missed you all too so much. I really have. Yes. Oh, I do. I feel good. I really do. I'm thankful to be able to have medical care that has helped me quite a bit. So, hello from Iowa. Hello. I'm happy to see you too. Welcome in. Hi, Kaya. Good to see you. Yes, I am doing much better. I probably, yeah, I probably shouldn't wait so long before I get help, but I did. I waited a little bit too long, so I needed a little extra help. Hello, Deborah. Good evening. Yes, hello. Back in making progress. I am. I have a pretty important schedule that I need to keep to. When they send you home with all of the orders and you're supposed to follow them, and I'm like, oh, darn it. But yep, I've definitely got some things that I need to take care of that I can take care of at home. And so when I go in for my checkup, I'll be good to go. Yes, I won't push too much. These lives will have to be a bit shorter, everyone. And like I said last night, I am a bit rusty, so you'll have to forgive me. But I can go, my plan is to do 45 minutes and then a Q&A for 15 so that we've got a total of 1 hour, and that should be just about right. So, yes. Oh, happy to see you too, Neon Carrot. I'd buy that, by the way. I would buy a neon carrot if I could. Oh, the nails. We've got purple today. We've got some purples. That's pretty fun, I think. Hello. Good to see you. Yes, so I don't know who was with me last night. I did pop on to do a test drive last night. Very short, very short live, just to go over a couple of pages of paperwork. But today I would like to dive back into what I was working on before I had to go. And that is Jack Smith's immunity brief. I think it's really important anyway to go through this because we are going to get the appendix soon. The appendix has not been released to the public. Mr. Trump has been challenging the redactions. Now, the appendix is going to include any extra resources, exhibits, those kinds of things. So that we're still waiting on, and I believe it'll probably be about 15 pages. And soon it will be coming out. So Mr. Trump had 7 days from the date of the order. And let me just make sure I have the order here. Let's see. Well, when was the order? Yes. So here's the order. And this was filed on the 10th. So by the 17th, that appendix will be made public. All right. So the appendix that complements this brief. So I thought, let's keep going on the brief. Let's keep reading through it. And I think it'll be timely because that appendix is due out in just a couple days. She had paused everything for a week to give Mr. Trump time to get himself sorted out. And now we're going to be good to go. So we'll be looking at, let me just add that to the calendar here. We've got the 17th. Yes, here it is. I already put it on the calendar. Good for me. Thank you, past. So it's already here. The defendant's time is up on the redactions. So we will have the appendix released to the public on the 17th. So that'll be a big day. Well, I've got to take it a bit easy. So I've still got to go kind of short today. Now, one thing is when I was teaching, I had much longer classes than an hour. So it's hard for me to kind of pace myself when I am only using an hour of time. So if I start talking too fast, I apologize. Or if I start skipping through, just, holler out and say, hey, can you slow her down? And that will be really helpful for me. But I always feel a little bit rushed. But it's really important to me to get as much material to you as possible before I have to go away. So, yeah, the calendar is looking really good. This week we've got the defendant's response to the immunity and then plaintiff's response to the statute of limitations motion. So, I'm sorry, not the statute of limitations, but we have a motion to dismiss and the respondent's here, the plaintiffs need to have it in. So we've got lots of filings due by the 17th, plus the appendix should be coming out. So this is going to be a really busy Thursday. Actually, we're kind of in a lull right now, but it's going to be a busy Thursday. And once we turn the door into next week, yowzers, we're going to have a lot of stuff coming up. Appreciate you so much. Oh, thank you, Marley. Oh, that's so sweet. Yes, of course, Vanetta, of course, and I appreciate that so much. So, again, you'll have to excuse me. My lives will be a bit shorter than per usual and at different times, but I will do my best to make sure we're on top of it, and I'm also taking care of myself. So, thank you so much for that. All right, everyone, let me go ahead and dive right in. I'm feeling better today. I am feeling better. So when last we spoke, which seems like forever ago, everyone, it really truly does seem like forever ago, I had gotten Jack Smith's brief and his writing based off of his immunity theory. Now, I know this has been talked about a lot, and people have kind of been hitting this around in the media, talking about these big, like, huge moments of new information we hadn't had before. So that's fine, but I still think it's important to go through the document itself. And there are a few things that I have seen already where it was kind of like, wow, we didn't know that, and that's interesting, but I think we should keep on plugging away at it. Oh, I've missed you too. I've missed you too. Hello, Kev. Good to see you. So I went through here the government's immunity stuff where they had gone and set up their pieces of law that they were looking at and the intro. And while we were going through the rest of this, Jack had set out these states, and we had finished on Nevada. So let's see if I can remember the states we've already been through. And also, I did have a chance to put the person's name up here. If they're a co-conspirator, I did put their name up. So I was really proud of myself. If it's just a person, I don't know who it is. But if it's a co-conspirator, I've got, I definitely have their names written down so we can get through it. Hello, Crazy. Good to see you. Welcome back. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yes. So the first state he went through was Arizona. And again, a lot of this information was new. It was not in the superseding indictment or the original indictment. So remember, the superseding indictment came afterwards, just came a few weeks ago. And so it's written different in order to accommodate the Supreme Court's decision on the immunity case. So we went through Arizona, we went through Georgia, which also, by the way, in Georgia, they just had a very interesting case come down regarding whether or not the local election people can refuse to certify, right? That's been a huge question. Everyone's worried, like, what about all these people that are just going to hold on to the numbers and not certify? Well, in Georgia, their court just came down and said, you're going to get arrested because that's illegal. You do not have the job of investigating fraud. You have the job of counting and then giving us the number. That's your job. The investigating part goes to somebody else. So I thought that was very good. And I think that will definitely be a trend in a lot of states where the Republicans, and again, I'm not picking on anybody, I'm just stating facts here, where Republicans have gotten groups of people together that are saying, well, we're not going to certify the election. So just keep in mind, that is their job to certify, not to investigate fraud. That would be through the FBI of whatever state it is. So the Georgia Bureau of Investigation would need to look into that. And that's their job. So the people doing the election counting, their counting is their job. So that decision just came out from the Georgia court. I think yesterday. It was pretty good decision. And I think it'll set the precedent for the rest of the states where we're having some troubles with that. I know people are kind of worried about that. So, all right. And then we went through Michigan as well. We've got several lawsuits already going in Michigan too regarding the election. So then we left off in Nevada, everybody. All right. So I'll go ahead and just dive right in. We're starting here with Nevada. I've got my sticky note up here. And I'll go through a few pages and then we'll get, oh, I know, everyone's worried. I know they are. I know. But again, we're kind of in an unknown territory, and that makes it even more scary. Yes. Oh, I was too, Janet. I was too. I love to see a judge going in and saying, like, the Constitution is kind of important. Let's follow that. I can appreciate that. Really, really appreciate that. Hello, James. Good to see you. Hello, Becky. You're in Texas. Oh my gosh. Well, one day at a time. We've got 20 days left. It'll be fine. We'll have to have a big party after this, everyone, once we make it through. All right, so here we go. Nevada. On November 17th, in Law v. Whitmer, agents of the defendant in Nevada filed suit claiming substantial irregularities, improprieties, and fraud in the presidential election, including based on machines used in ballot signature matching and votes by non-resident and unalive voters. And then we have a footnote here, and he's just citing his sources down here. The defendant approved a press conference by his surrogates announcing the suit. On November 19th, P43, the RNC chief counsel, sent an email to P44, an RNC spokesperson, warning about inaccuracies in the suit. Quote, just FYI, I don't believe the claims in the contest regarding unalive voters. These voters from out of state are substantiated. We are working with the campaign on data matching project, and these numbers are going to be a lot lower than what the Nevada people have come up with. They are also targeting our military votes. Ugh. To be frank, the contest has little chance of succeeding. Happy to discuss this email account. Hold on, everybody. Happy to discuss this stuff if you want more info. Then P44 sent a copy of P43's email from her personal email account to the personal email account of P45, one of the defendant's White House staffers who also volunteered for the campaign. So again, we're in Nevada right now, and they're already having some pretty significant questions about this fraud issue because they're saying we're not seeing it here in Nevada. Notwithstanding the Republican National Committee's chief counsel's warning, the defendant retweeted and amplified news of the lawsuit on November 24th, calling it, quote, big news, that a Nevada court had agreed to hear it. But the defendant did not similarly promote the fact that within 2 weeks, on December 4th, the Nevada District Court dismissed Law v. Whitmer, finding a detailed opinion that, quote, there is no credible or reliable evidence that the 2020 general election in Nevada was affected by fraud, including through the signature match machines, and that Biden won the election in the state. 4 days later, on December 8th, Nevada's Supreme Court, okay, we can head over, affirmed the district court's decision, noting that despite its earlier order asking appellants to identify specific findings with which they take issue, appellants have not pointed to any unsupported factual findings, and we have identified none. So we're having an issue here finding any evidence. Later, in his ellipse speech on January 6th, the defendant repeated multiple claims explicitly rejected by the Nevada courts. On December 18th, the Nevada Secretary of State's office released a facts versus myth document to combat disinformation that the defendant and others were propagating about the election, including false claims that the Secretary of State's office had not investigated claims of fraud, even though it had, quote, been presented with evidence of widespread fraud, end quote. To which the office responded, quote, while we are pursuing action in a number of isolated cases, we have yet to see any evidence of widespread fraud. The Facts versus Myths document also stated publicly that the courts had universally rejected fraud claims. 4 separate cases were heard by Nevada judges, including the Nevada Supreme Court. After examining records presented, each case was discounted due to lack of evidence. So when he's saying he couldn't even get his cases in front of a judge, it's because he didn't even have enough evidence to get in front of a judge. That's what they're saying here. There was no way for that to happen. And again, one thing that keeps coming back to me on this is this whole idea that, you've got a right to call out fraud. And, even the people January 6th were saying, well, this election was stolen or whatever. And I keep thinking to myself, like, who's really investigating this? Are they trained to investigate it? How much education have they had? How much experience have they had in researching voter fraud? I mean, how many years have they been working on that? And I keep thinking, like, I don't believe Mr. Trump has any training. And so when I'm looking at these locals who are kind of saying, oh, there's so much fraud, I'm like, well, what kind of training have you had? Did you have like a 45-minute discussion after you became an elector or what? I mean, what's going on? So I think that's really important to note that fraud is a crime. And if you commit a crime, it has to be investigated properly. And that's not what happened here. We just had people calling out, fraud without proper investigation through the proper channels. Yes, thank you, VC. Thank you. Yes, I put in some of the names, but not the people names, only the co-conspirator names. So anyway, just keep that in mind when people are saying, oh, it's fraud. I'm like, okay, well, who investigated it, right? And do they have the credentials to investigate fraud? Because I don't think they do. Next up, we've got Pennsylvania. 2 days after the elections, on November 6th, the defendant called P46, the chairman of the Pennsylvania Republican Party, the entity responsible for supporting Republican candidates in the Commonwealth at the federal, state, and local level. And again, our footnotes here are just citations. P46 had a prior relationship with the defendant, including having represented him in litigation in Pennsylvania after the 2016 presidential election. The defendant asked P46 how, without fraud, he had gone from winning Pennsylvania on election day to trailing in the days afterwards. Consistent with what campaign staff already had told the defendant, P46 confirmed that it was not fraud. It was that there were roughly 1,750,000 mail-in ballots still being counted in Pennsylvania, which was expected to be 80% for Biden. Over the following 2 months, the defendant spread false claims of fraud in Pennsylvania anyway. So I'll pause here and I'll just make a notation. I think anyone who has done any work with campaigns or with elections, whether it's one side or the other, once absentee ballots started becoming a thing, that you have to wait until all of those are counted as well. So the election's never completely counted until after those are counted. So this makes me wonder if Mr. Trump really understands how mail-in ballots work. And if he doesn't, this has been going on for decades. He needs to catch up, man. I am feeling better, Mads. Good to see you. So that's my other question. My first question is, what kind of law enforcement was involved with the fraud? And second, how is Mr. Trump unable to understand that absentee ballots have to be counted later? And didn't he vote? Hasn't he voted all of these decades? That's my question. We'll be waiting a while. Let's not tell him. Missy, that's funny. Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. In early November, in a campaign meeting, when the defendant suggested that more people in Pennsylvania voted than had checked in to vote, Deputy Campaign Manager P3 corrected him. Around the same time, Philadelphia City Commissioners P47 appeared on television and stated that there was no evidence of widespread fraud in Philadelphia. After seeing the interview, the defendant targeted P47, tweeting, quote, a guy named P47, a Philadelphia commissioner and so-called Republican, Rhino, is being used big time. Hold on, everyone. Got someone popping into the screen. Could you please not do that? Thank you. He refuses to look at the mountain of corruption and dishonesty. We win. So that's significant. As a result of the defendant's attack, threats that P47 already was receiving became more targeted and detailed and included his address and the names of his family members. So again, they're going into this intent element. That's really the thing that is so powerful for this case, again, is that Mr. Trump is going to come in and say, as his defense, I really believed that there was fraud. That's his defense, everyone. That's his defense. I believe there really was fraud, number one. And if you don't agree with that, if I did know about the fraud, I still had the authority to investigate because I'm president. So it's going to be a two-parter, right? If you come in and you say, I did know, if you're able to prove that, then I'm going to say it's okay because I was the president. So there are two parts. It's a twofer here. Does it happen again? Mads, none of us are. Yeah, it's gonna be quite the journey, everyone. All right, here we go. On the defendant's behalf, now these names I have added for the co-conspirators, Rudy too spread patently false claims about Pennsylvania. On November 25th, Rudy and P12 attended an unofficial hearing with Republican state legislators in a Gettysburg Hotel conference room. The defendant called in, claimed to have been watching, and demanded that the election in Pennsylvania, quote, has to be turned around, end quote. During the event, Rudy, I'm just going to use his first name. You all know who I'm talking about with Rudy, right? Giuliani falsely stated that Pennsylvania issued 1.8 million absentee ballots and received 2.5 million in return. The claim was rooted in an obvious error, the comparison of the number of ballots sent out in the primary election to the number of ballots received in the general election. After seeing Giuliani make his claim, P43 at the RNC's chief counsel tweeted publicly, quote, "This is not true," end quote. In the following days, campaign staff internally confirmed that Giuliani was lying when one campaign staffer wrote in an email that Giuliani's claim was just wrong and, quote, "there's no way to defend it," end quote. P3 responded, quote, "We have been saying this for a while. It's very frustrating," end quote. Now, again, these are going to be people who are going to be called. If your name's redacted, it's looking like, so P3, P9, P43, they're all going to be called as witnesses. So kind of keep that in mind too as we go through this. It's very frustrating. Likewise, in late November or December, P9 informed the defendant directly that a claim Giuliani was spreading that Pennsylvania received 700,000 more mail-in ballots than were mailed out was BS. Explain the error. P43 followed up on his public tweet in a private email on November 28th to P44, the RNC spokesperson, expressing his concern about Giuliani and P12's spread of disinformation. Quote, "I really not trying to give you a hard time, but what Giuliani and P12 are doing is a joke, and they are getting laughed out of court. It's setting us back in our fight for election integrity." This is a new quote that was not in either of the indictments, by the way, just to let you know. They are misleading millions of people who have wishful thinking that the president is going to somehow win this thing. Wow, that statement is very powerful. And again, this is the first place where I'm seeing that. It is not in either indictments. That's pretty important. When Giuliani learned of P43's tweet and email on November 28th, he called P43 and left a threatening voicemail stating, quote, "I really do not need an explanation for what you said today because if there isn't a good one, you should resign." Got it? Oh my gosh, Rudy. "I'll call the boss and get you to resign. Call me. It'd be better for you if you did." Oh my gosh. Rudy also contacted the RNC chairwoman, P39, to demand that P43 be fired. And thereafter, P43 was relieved of his duties at RNC's chief counsel. What? I didn't know about that. So his chief counsel out of the RNC got fired. Whoa, this is new information. This is new information. Good afternoon. Hello. Yikes. All right. So I think that P43 will be an important piece here as well. Yikes. On December 3rd, 4 Republican leaders of the Pennsylvania legislature issued a public letter stating that the General Assembly lacked the authority to overturn the popular vote and appoint its own slate of electors, and that doing so would violate the election code and Constitution. P48, an agent of the defendant who worked closely with Giuliani, issued a tweet showing the 4 legislators' names, its signatures, and wrote, quote, "These are the 4 cowardice Pennsylvania legislators that intend to allow the Democrat machine to hashtag steal the vote, hashtag cowards, hashtag liars, hashtag traitors," while linking to the legislators' Twitter accounts. Whoa, yikes, everybody. So now we've got full threats going for these 4 people trying to do their job. On Sunday, December 6th at 12:56 a.m. from the White House residence, having just returned from a political rally in Valdosta, Georgia. The defendant retweeted and amplified P48's post. Yikes. Stay hydrated, thank you very much. Yes, thank you. I have some hot tea today. All right, number 6, Wisconsin. So that was the end of what we had for Nevada, or for Pennsylvania. So we had Nevada, Pennsylvania, and now we're into Wisconsin. All right. Oh, yeah, there were people getting fired left and right here. All right, Wisconsin. Let's see what's going on. On November 29th, a recount of the defendant's campaign had petitioned and paid for confirmed that Biden had won Wisconsin. So there was a recount that he paid for, and it shows he lost, and increased the defendant's margin of defeat. Ooh, that hurts. That's a bummer. On December 14th, the Wisconsin Supreme Court rejected the campaign's election lawsuits there. As a result, on December 21st, Wisconsin's governor signed a certificate of final determination, confirming that prior certificate of ascertainment that established Biden's electors as valid electors for the state. In response, the defendant issued a series of tweets attacking P49, the Wisconsin Supreme Court justice who had written the majority opinion rejecting his campaign's lawsuit and advocating that the Wisconsin legislature overturn the valid election results. So here we go. 2 years ago, the great people of Wisconsin asked me to endorse a man named P49 for the state Supreme Court justice when he was getting destroyed in the polls again, a tough Democrat candidate who had no chance of losing. After my endorsement, P49 easily won. Wow, he just voted against me in a big court decision on voter fraud, of which there was much, despite many pages of dissent from 3 highly respected justices. One thing has nothing to do with another, but we ended up losing 4-3 in a really incorrect ruling. Great Republicans in Wisconsin should take these 3 strong decisions to their state legislators and overturn this ridiculous state election. We won in a landslide. Wow, so you can see how he's upset with the judge. So there is a judge on Wisconsin Supreme Court that he's like, this guy's got to go. Like, that's a lot. That's a lot. Good morning, Thomas. Good to see you. So I think this also would be pretty persuasive information for a jury, too. The threats, that getting fired, all of those things. And apparently P49 was just trying to do his job, and bad things were going on here. All right, after the defendant's tweet, the state marshals responsible for P49's safety arranged to provide P49 with additional police protection based on social media traffic and other threatening communications. Wow. He's going after the judge. Oh, goodness. All right, so that was the last piece then of our states. Wisconsin was the last piece. So now let's move on into the voting machines in multiple states. So let's talk about voting machines here. They talk specifically about all of these arguments that they've had about the voting machines. That was one of the reasons. Can P49 sue? Yes. For harassment? Because it was specifically intended for that person. If you just have a general statement like, wow, this guy is a jerk face, that's going to be difficult. But if you're specifically citing somebody's name, where they live and what they do, and a false piece of information, yeah. I mean, that's exactly what happened with the poll workers in Georgia. So absolutely could. Absolutely. All right, so next we're into the voting machines in multiple states. Let's cover that. It's only a couple pages here. Throughout the post-election period, the defendant and co-conspirators repeatedly made claims about the security and accuracy of voting machines across multiple states, despite the fact that they were on notice that the claims were false. As early as November 12th, for instance, the National Association of Secretaries of State, the National Association of State Election Directors, and other coordinated federal, state, and private entities issued a public statement declaring that the 2020 election was the most secure in American history, and that there was no evidence that any voting system deleted or lost votes, changed votes, or was in any way compromised. Next up, on November 14th, in the tweet announcing that Giuliani was to lead his campaign legal efforts, the defendant also names Sydney, a private attorney. This is the Kraken, a private attorney who was fixated on voting machines claims, and P10, another private attorney. 2 days later, the November 16th, on the defendant's behalf, Executive Assistant P42 and Sidney Powell and other private attorneys, an email titled "From POTUS," attaching a document containing bullet points critical to Powell, a company that manufactured voting machines used in certain states. I think this redaction is actually incorrect. Sorry, everybody, that's incorrect. This is a C3, not a CC3. Let me back up again, all right? I apologize. I'm a bit rusty, everyone. Hang in there with me here. All right, so Sydney and other private attorneys, an email titled "From POTUS," attaching a document containing bullet points critical of C3, a company that manufactured voting machines used in certain states, and writing, quote, "See attached. Please include as is or almost as is in lawsuit." Sidney Powell responded 9 minutes later, writing, quote, "It must go in all suits in Georgia and Pennsylvania immediately with a fraud claim that requires the entire election to be set aside in those states and machines impounded for nonpartisan professional inspection." So Sidney Powell, yep, Dominion, you got it. Sidney Powell really has a hankering for Dominion. All right. She is still in the middle of a defamation lawsuit with Dominion. I mean, they're still going after her for this stuff. But it seems like her shtick was really these machines. Like, there's a lot of other things that other people are doing, but when you think of those machines, think of Sidney Powell, because she's the one that really perpetuated that. It felt like 9 months. Oh my gosh, true story. It certainly did. It certainly did. On November 17th, P50, the director of the Department of Homeland Security's Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, publicly tweeted that a group of private election security experts concluded that claims of computer-based election fraud either have been unsubstantiated or are technically incoherent. 2 days later, on November 19th, Giuliani and Sidney Powell and P10 and others held a press conference at the RNC headquarters on behalf of the defendant in his campaign. During it, Sidney Powell made false and factually impossible claims regarding Dominion and the integrity of the country's election infrastructure. That night, Fox News television's personality, P51, stated on air that because Sidney Powell incendiary comments about voting machines, he had invited her on his television program. He further stated, quote, "But she never sent us any evidence, despite a lot of requests, polite requests, not a page. When we kept pressing, she got angry and told us to stop contacting her. When we checked with others around the Trump campaign, people in positions of authority, they told us that Sidney Powell has never given them any evidence either. She never demonstrated that a single actual vote was moved illegitimately by software from one candidate to another. Not one." Again, this is another quote that is not in either of the indictments here. Is it? Was it Carlson? Oh my goodness. I'm not surprised. All right, the defendant saw his private attorney's RNC press conference and P51 discussion of Sydney, and he acknowledged to P4 and to Sydney he had appeared. Sorry, I can't mess this one up. This one's hilarious. And he acknowledged to P4 and Sidney Powell that Sidney Powell had appeared unhinged in the press conference. On November 20th, the day after the press conference, the defendant made a similar comment to P7 and P45, two White House staffers who also volunteered for his campaign. In a casual conversation after another meeting had ended, the defendant told P7 and P45 that P51 had eviscerated or destroyed Sidney Powell. The defendant then had a call with Sidney Powell on the speakerphone while P7 and P45 listened in and mentioned that P51 segment to Sidney. While Sidney responded, the defendant placed the call on mute to P7 and P45, mocked and laughed at her, called her claims crazy, and made a reference to the science fiction series Star Trek when they were describing her allegations. In the same period, when P9 told the defendant that Sidney's claims were unrealistic and should not be included in lawsuits, the defendant agreed that he had not seen everything to substantiate Sidney's allegations. So even Mr. Trump right here is saying, I didn't see anything that would support what Sidney was saying about these machines. Like, he's saying it himself, and they have all these witnesses that can come in and say. Now, some people might think, we'll do a learning moment here real quick. Some people might say, well, I'm not so sure because this is hearsay. And it's true. This would be hearsay. All of this stuff in here, like I heard them say this, that's hearsay. But there are so many exceptions to hearsay. This would probably be present sense impression would be what is here. So that would be easy. There are several exceptions that this could get in under, but I have no doubt it'd be objected to as hearsay, but that's okay. You can have hearsay as long as there's an exception. So here's our evidence moment of the day. All right, so on November 22nd, notwithstanding the defendant's tweet from 8 days prior announcing Powell's involvement, Giuliani issued a statement on behalf of the campaign distancing the defendant from Powell. Powell is practicing law on her own. She's not a member of the Trump legal team. She's also not a lawyer for the president in his personal capacity. Nonetheless, the defendant continued to support and publicize Sidney Powell, knowingly false claims. For example, within days of Rudy's statement, the defendant promoted a lawsuit that Sidney Powell was about to file, tweeting on November 24th, breaking news at Sidney Powell says her lawsuit in Georgia could be filed as soon as tomorrow and says there's no way there was anything but widespread election fraud. Hashtag MAGA, hashtag these people. It's interesting that they're hashtagging Dobbs here. Sidney Powell filed a lawsuit the next day against the governor of Georgia, falsely alleging massive election fraud accomplished through C3 election software hardware. The defendant again promoted the lawsuit in a tweet. The lawsuit was dismissed within 2 weeks on December 7th. On November 29th, P50, who was no longer the CISA director, appeared on the television program 60 Minutes. P50 stated that he was confident that the election had been secure and that there was no manipulation of the vote on the machine's count size. In response, the defendant tweeted publicly about P50's appearance. At 60 Minutes never asked us for a comment about their ridiculous one-sided story on election security, which is an international joke. Our 2020 election, from poorly rated C3 to a country flooded with uncounted for mail-in votes, was probably our least secure ever. A few days later, P10 appeared on radio program as the defendant's agent and said that because of P50 comments to promote confidence in the security of the election infrastructure, P50, quote, should be drawn and quartered, taken out at dawn, and this word. Thereafter, P50 was subjected to unalive threats. In a press conference on December 1st, that the defendant acknowledged watching, a Georgia election official decried P10 and the defendant's public statements spreading disinformation and said that if they did not step up, someone's going to get killed. All right, let's see what happens. On December 1st, AG P52 stated publicly that the Justice Department had not seen evidence of fraud sufficient to change the election results. With respect to voting machines, he said, quote, "There's been one assertion that would be a systemic fraud, and that would be to claim the machines were programmed essentially to skew the election results. And the DHS and DOJ have been looking into that. And so far, we haven't seen anything to substantiate that." Giuliani and P12 immediately issued a formal campaign statement attacking P52 and the Justice Department, writing, quote, "With all due respect to the Attorney General, there hasn't been any semblance of a Department of Justice investigation. His opinion appears to be without any knowledge or investigation of the substantial irregularities and evidence of systemic fraud." In mid-December, the defendant spoke with the RNC chairwoman, P39, and asked her to publicize and promote a private report that had been released on December 13th that purported to identify flaws in the use of Dominion machines in Antrim County, Michigan. P39 refused, telling the defendant that she already had discussed the report with P38, Michigan's Speaker of the House, who had told her that the report was inaccurate. P39 conveyed to the defendant, P38, exact statement, "The report was effing nuts," end quote. On January 2nd, during the defendant's call with the Georgia Secretary of State, P33, said of false claims regarding voting machines, quote, "I don't believe that you're really questioning the Dominion machines, because we did a hand retally, 100% retally of all of the ballots, and compared them to what the machine said and came up with virtually the same result. Then we did the recount and we got virtually the same result. So I guess we can probably take that off the table." In response, the defendant falsely claimed that in other states, we think we found tremendous corruption with Dominion machines, but we'll have to see. At the Ellipse on January 6th, the defendant and co-conspirators who spoke at the rally continued to make unsubstantiated and false claims about Dominion machines. Giuliani claimed that the U.S. Senate runoff election in Georgia the day before, the votes were deliberately changed by the same algorithm that had been used in cheating President Trump and Vice President Pence. Oh my goodness gracious! Yikes! Eastman, who's CC2 here, Eastman continued the false attack. Quote, we now know because we caught it live last time in real time, but how the machines contributed to that fraud. They put those ballots in a secret folder and in the machines sitting there waiting until they know how many they need. And then the machine, after the close of polls, we now know who's voted. And we know who hasn't. And I can now, in the machines, match those unvoted ballots with unvoted voter and put them together in the machine. We saw it happen in real time last night, and it happened on November 3rd as well. In his own speech, the defendant again raised the false specter of, quote, the highly troubling matter of Dominion, end quote, and lied about machines flipping votes from the defendant to Biden and an astronomical and astounding error rate in the machine's ballot scanning. All right. We stumbled through that one. So I don't think they think there's a problem with the machines in reality versus what they were looking for. Now that's the point at which I will stop reading at this point, everyone. To give my eyes a little bit of rest. But what questions do we have? We can go ahead and do a little bit of a Q&A here at the end for a little bit. You're back. Yes, I'm back. I'm back at 50%. just halfway, not completely. I still have to take a lot of breaks. But I am very happy to be back. So we went through Pennsylvania, we went through Michigan and Wisconsin and Nevada. Today, we went through those four. Anyone know why my likes aren't counting? Oh no, Suze, no. Oh, Hello, Lynn. Good to see you. Yes, yes. Oh, no. Goodness gracious. So I do have lots planned for the next few days, everybody, but I'll need to, again, kind of do a format where I just read for a little bit and then do Q&As. That's going to have to work for me at the moment. Are you going to post this somewhere? Yes. So another thing is that as long as I keep everything under an hour, then I can post it actually to TikTok. So if you are interested in that, rather than having to go over to YouTube, that's where I will post this as well. But yeah, my YouTube posts have been going up pretty well, I think. I'm only a little bit behind, but I will have it posted in both places. Are we guarding against this happening again? Okay, great question. Great question. So we had the Electoral Vote Act was updated right after all of this happened, January 6th. And so they updated it and they put a few hurdles in there in order to kind of stop this stuff from going on, from people doing the same thing again. One of the big things is that the governors have to certify the electors. That's the first thing. So the electors' votes, if someone gives the information to the governor, it's on the governor's shoulder to make that determination. Once the governor has signed off on it, then those votes go into Congress. Now, on the ground level, we also have rules saying, look, if you do not do your job, you will be arrested. So you local people, you don't want to get arrested, just do your job, because your job is not to investigate, your job is to count and pass that information along. So they've got laws saying that as well. So once the governor sends it out to the House of Representatives, because the Senate's not involved when it comes to this kind of stuff, they send it to the House of Representatives. Now this is where things get a little bit dicey, because your representatives then say, Nevada, number of electoral votes for Nevada, and then they say whatever the number is. So if the representatives in the House of Representatives start, being jerks and start saying, hey, we're not going to allow this to happen, or we're still questioning how much our state really has, that's where we're going to get into another situation where we've got to look at the law and see what happens, what should happen when a legislature is in violation of the Constitution. Because that would be a violation. If you're just doing it for political reasons, that there's nothing, that's not good. You're representing a state, the state's giving you a number and you're refusing to give that over. That's pretty huge. So I would say it is much more secure than 2020. And 2020 was secure. It just, there were a few little loopholes that a couple of lawyers wanted to kind of jump around and play in. And those loopholes have been closed now. So all of that is closed. Now, I don't know if they're still going to do it and be like, I'm going to jail. But they might. I'm so glad you're home and sharing your knowledge. Oh, listening to you helps my anxiety. Oh, that's so sweet, Donna. I know. It's so stressful, isn't it? It's really stressful, especially this idea of, what's going to happen after we vote, right? Are the local people going to do the job that they are hired to do, chosen to do? Or are they going to screw stuff up on purpose? And will our U.S. representatives do the job that they're supposed to do? Or are they going to go out on their own and, be jerks about it? So those two things are very stressful, very, very stressful. So for me, the comfort that I find is that if they follow the law, we will be fine. If they don't follow the law, then that's where these things start happening and there will be consequences for them. But even with those consequences, what's going to happen in the interim? Yeah, the House Speaker seems confident about the election. Well, here's the deal with the House Speaker. Let me just tell you two things. All right, so that fella, I'm not a fan of that fella, and he wrote an amicus brief on the Texas versus Pennsylvania case. And he has been amicusing all over the place, where he writes these briefs to send into the Supreme Court saying, you do have the right to do this and you do have the right to do that. Like, he's on the other side of the law. He's not on the proper side of the law, the constitutional part. He's definitely in it. He's a part of all of this troubles, everyone. He's off his rocker. I agree. He drives me crazy because it sounds like it's one of those people that just because you say it with confidence doesn't mean it's true. He's that person. That's who he is. And the fact that he's Speaker of the House is very, very troubling, because he doesn't seem to really follow the Constitution. Like, that's not important to him. It's just the end result and who wins is what's important to him. And I say that with my entire whole heart, knowing fully what defamation is. I say that confidently. Supreme Court will throw out Harris's win. Well, you've got to have a reason. And that's a valid question. You have to have a reason to get in front of the Supreme Court. So she will have had to somebody's got to file a case, a lawsuit, one way or the other. It has to go through the district court. They have to rule on it. And then if they rule for Harris, then Trump would appeal and to the appellate court. And if they rule for for Harris, then Trump would appeal to the Supreme Court. So you still go through the phases of courts. You just would have, if he lost, he would just keep appealing it. And as we've all seen, this can kind of take some time. Something about need 1/5 of Congress to challenge or something like that. That's a good question. Let me just grab what we've got here. So the certification of the election is under Article 1. Article 2. Let me pull it out here. Article 2. It's Article 3, Section 1. Here we go. Each state shall appoint in such manner as the legislature thereof may direct a number of electors equal to the whole number of senators and representatives to which the state may be entitled in Congress, but no senator, representative, or person holding an office of trust or profit under the United States shall be appointed an elector. So that gets us started. And then there's a whole bunch of stuff here on what the actual electors did, but that stuff was replaced by the 12th Amendment. So the 12th Amendment is really where you want to go. The 12th Amendment here, the election of the president and the vice president. The electors shall meet in their respective states and vote by ballot for president and vice president, of whom at least shall be an inhabitant of the same state with themselves. They shall name in their ballots the person voted for as president, and in distinct ballots make distinct lines of all persons voted for as the president, and of all persons voted for as vice president, and of the number of votes for each, which lists they shall sign and certify and transmit sealed to the seat of government of the United States, directed to the president of the Senate. The president of the Senate shall, in presence of the Senate and House representatives, open all the certificates, and the votes shall then be counted. The person having the greatest number of votes for president shall be the president, if such number be a majority of the whole number of electors appointed. And if no person shall have a majority, then from the persons having the highest numbers, not exceeding 3 of the list, those voted for as president, the House of Representatives shall choose immediately by ballot the president. All right, so that's the language. When it comes to actually implementing this, we haven't really had that. Now down here it says, and if the House of Representatives shall not choose a president whenever the right of choice shall devolve into them before the 4th day of March, next the following, then the vice president shall act as the president. And that gets hinky because we changed the roles up. So, and also as a friendly reminder to everybody, look at this. This is our electors in the states. If they decided to hold back on their certifications, they are literally violating the 12th Amendment of the Constitution. It is literally a violation of the United States Constitution and the part written by James Madison. I mean, this is like old school stuff. So to say, I think there was fraud, that's more important than the job you're given under the US Constitution. So, again, it's like, who do you think you are? Who are you to say that you've got the authority to go against the 12th Amendment of the United States Constitution, right? What makes you that special? A little word salad. I think, right. So if for some reason they're unable to get to the electors, if that doesn't pan out properly, then it says here, in the presence of all the Senate and the House of Representatives, open all the certificates, and the votes shall then be counted. Person having the greatest number of votes for president shall be president, if such a number be a majority or the whole number of electors. appointed, and if no person has the majority. So the only way that Congress would be in is if there was no majority. Main character syndrome's true story. That's so true. So that's the only way that the House would be involved, is if there was not a majority set out here. Now, I do not see the 2/3 request in here. I do not see like the supermajority here. So I'm not sure if they mean regular majority or supermajority. I would think they meant supermajority because that's the same as the impeachment, but it's not written here. We don't have that number. Oh, and this part's cut out as well. So yeah, I mean, that's the 12th Amendment thing. So if they don't do their job by March, the VP becomes president. It's possible. I don't know, because if we get that far down the road with nobody agreeing on anything, I don't think it's going to work out that way, because at the time this was written, the president and the vice president were completely different people. They were, the vice president was usually your opponent who lost. So it was almost like a, situation where, well, I lost the presidency, but I guess I'm a vice president now. Like, they didn't really have a team like we have now. So it would make sense if one person's not going to get all the votes, then put the other person in, because they were the second choice of everybody. But we don't do it like that anymore. So that language is not proper for how things are these days. Let's see. The whole number, right. So, but in choosing the president, the votes shall be taken by states. The representation from each state having one vote. A quorum for this purpose shall consist of a member or members from 2/3 of the states. All right, so we do have to have 2/3 of the states, everybody. I didn't read far enough along. We do have a supermajority. Yay, that was my guess. That's what I thought we were going to have. And if the House of Representatives shall not choose a president whenever the right choice shall be right choice of president whenever the choice shall devolve upon them before the 4th day of March. Here, that should be, yeah. And again, it's in parentheses because we don't do that anymore. So that language isn't important. Section 3 of the 20th Amendment changed that. So let's take a look at that. Section 3 of the 20th Amendment real quick. Well, I've got this here. 20th. Okay, Section 2. Congress shall assemble at least once every year, and at such meeting beginning at noon on the 3rd day of January, unless they shall by law appoint a different day. So that's the timing of it. So they're even putting a time limit on Congress as well. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. So does that make sense, everybody? A little bit about what's happening here? So if the electors send in the certifications from the states, right, then you have to think, what role do the representatives have? Well, they can challenge the electors from their own state. They can say, we don't think that's right. But then we get into a mess, like what happened last time. Like, I believe there was a dude from Arizona who was all ready to challenge and be like, I don't think that's true, or I don't think that's right, and I want to challenge. But, he didn't. So we don't know what that looks like. The other thing, too, is this is sent in sealed envelopes from the governors of each state. So let me break it down for you. If the electors or the election people refuse to certify, they can go to jail. They're in violation of state law and federal law. If they give it over, the number of electors, except for Michigan and Nebraska, they have split electors. Those electors sign the certificate of ascertainment, then give it to the governor. Each governor decides, again, this was not in the original, this has happened since January 6th. Then the governor decides, we're good to go, we've got the electors, we've got the votes, and then send it to the president of the Senate. So that's the next piece. When it's up at the Senate, the House of Representatives, when it's at the House of Representatives, then it's possible a representative can come in and say, I don't think that's correct. But George already broke the record? Oh my gosh. Wow. Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. I love that. Again, I'm not picking parties or picking people, but I'm absolutely picking that everyone go and vote. I think that's fantastic. Is it possible to intercept the sealed envelopes and then change it in the opponent's favor? Great question. I suppose anything's possible, but we have had, I can't remember her name in Colorado, what her name was there. We have had some people mess around like that, and you will get charged. You'll get charged with mail fraud. There are several different things you can get charged with, and those are really big offenses too, that you can rack up. So you could go to prison. Tina Peters, thank you, Casey. That's right. Yep. I'm voting early and in person for safety. So they've got, see, that's so interesting. In my state, we don't have places where we can go and vote early. Like if you want to vote early, you have to send in a absentee ballot. There's like nowhere open. But I think that's really great. I'm a huge fan of that, because there's a lot going on the voting day. You got stuff to do. The world doesn't stop because we're having an election. You got to go to work. You got to take care of your business. Like some people, it's like 9 o'clock. I don't know. I can't even get there. I can't get to my place. Election interference is a big thing, and I think it needs to be the topic on everybody's mind because I think together we can make sure we're watching out for each other and we're making sure that not only is it not fraudulent, but other people aren't bullying people into making it be fraudulent. I think that's really important. All states have early voting. They do, but they don't have polls that open. We don't have locations that open. Yeah, so I can't walk into my precinct and vote. That's only set up on election day. It is an old joke. Yeah, vote early and often. Well, you can only vote once, and you have to be an American citizen in order to vote. All right? You have to be an American citizen if you're going to vote in an American election. All right? Very important. Interference from politicians and their buddies, not voters that they allege. Yeah, yep, exactly. School is a polling place. I took off for us to spend the day. Oh, I love that. I love that. Would it be possible to look at your Pew Pew laws in the Constitution? Yes. We've got a lot of cases. We have a new case that the Supreme Court just heard actually of like different pieces of that, put it together. So what I'll probably do is go through the complaints and listen to the oral arguments of that case that just happened, I think last week. And then I'll do a post on that. In Ohio, early and in person for nearly a month. Really? Oh my gosh. Yeah, we don't have that here. We should though. That I think would be really helpful. It should be a national holiday. I agree completely. I remember my mom took me out of school. My mom took me out of school whenever there was an election. I mean, it could be an election for school boards. Like, who cares? They're voting. Come on. So we go, to the polls and hang out. And, I'd be one of those annoying kids in the back of the poll room playing with their stuff while their parents are watching out. That was me back there, everybody. But I do think that it should be a national holiday and make it easier for everybody. I like rank order. I do too. The rank order, I enjoy that as well. Why are Trump's own Republican people trying to... Oh, well, now that I don't know. That's not been confirmed. And, I think this question of was there a third attempt, then some people are saying, was there even a second attempt? And so I guess it depends on what your definition of attempt is. I think is a big deal. Where did I get the chopstick pen? I don't... Oh my gosh, it's a sushi pen. There's like a little rice shrimp roll that goes at the bottom. I don't know. I think I got this at Five Below actually. But I tell you what, this is like my most comfortable pen. And so I needed a little comfort today. So I got it out. Early voting starts on the 15th. All right. Oh yeah, well, that's fantastic. I need that pen. Well, Five Below, it was, whatever. I should probably go get another one. As long as they keep attempting. Now, Murray, violence is not the answer. Violence is not the answer, all right? Oh, the bubblegum machine pen. Yes, that would have so fun. I have so much fun with all these pens. I really do. I may have a pen problem. Oh, my goodness gracious. Suspect, he's saying Sheriff's Department. Oh, yeah, I think I read something about that too. But if they acted in good faith, oops, puzzle piece, everybody. Let's see if we can get over there. As long as they acted in good faith and weren't trying to harm him, they're going to be okay. Jimmy Carter gets, oh my gosh, man, that guy, I tell you, he's done so many good things for the world. It's just fantastic. I got a pen addiction. I hear you. I hear you. I'm all about what the pen feel is. So it's for me. It's like, oh, do I need to write today? Do I need to point today? What do I need? That's very important. That's important to me. Oh, I know. We're all ready for him to go away for sure. Nobody to blame but himself. I agree. Although violence is never the answer, in my opinion. I think as I tell people around me, we don't hit people, we hurt them with our words. So use your words to hurt people. No reason to get physical. There's really none. Use your words. That's what they're there for. Oh my gosh, because we don't need that kind of situation coming down. We don't need that happening. New pets. Yes. Oh, good. Good. I love that. I love that. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's the wrong thing to say. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. I don't see that solving problems. I just really don't. True. But, also watching Martin Luther King Jr. through all of that and going through his speeches. I studied his speeches quite a bit in college and, what he was doing. And it's just, he's right. He's just right. So I guess my stance is I prefer to follow in the path of Martin Luther King Jr. as opposed to other people that were quite violent. So, oh my gosh. Yes. Kamala, the crowd size. Oh my gosh. He's gonna really face reality at some point and be able, because if you can bait him like that, I mean, I think Hillary had said that once, if you can bait him with a tweet, he shouldn't have the, nuclear codes. Like, that's so true. Very, very true. Very true. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, with that, everybody, I see my time has run here. So I will have to say goodbye for today. I probably will not be back today unless I'm having a super fabulous peak window moment. But I will again try to be on as much as I can, everyone. Thank you all for bearing with me. Yes, I need to rest up. So I do appreciate your time, though. I really, really do. It's so fun to be back. I'm glad we could come back and have a chat. So I'll be back again soon. I will rest up quite a bit. And thank you, everyone, for reminding me to do that. So I'll be resting up and then I will come back on when I'm good to go. So have a wonderful day, everyone. And I will see you all very soon. Take care. And thank you, moderators. Thank you for all your